First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer of this very important conference, and in particular, Ministry of Natural Resources, China. And I'm also pleased that we have successfully co-sponsored one of the breakup sessions from yesterday afternoon with our old partner of China Institute for Marine Affairs, and talking about the possibility and the importance of cooperation in science, and particularly between Japan and China. And so this morning, I'd like to start my speech by sort of echoing my colleagues from, in particular from China and other observer states, that the important role of the observer states is really, including that of Japan, is to contribute to the well-being of the Arctic through science and innovation cooperation, and particularly with the Arctic states. So in this note today, I'd like to sort of highlight the three examples of my institute, of Ocean Policy Research Institute, has conducted with the partners in the Arctic states to enforce the collaboration in science and innovation in this particular area. And the first example of this is the 5-year multidisciplinary program that we have done back in 1993 with the cooperation with Russia and Norway. I can see some of my old colleagues from Norway here joining us, on the International Northern Sea Route Program, like INSROP program. And here we have conducted the programs from both phase 1 and phase 2, looking at the natural conditions and ice navigation and environmental factors and challenges, and trade and commercial shipping aspects of the NSR, and political and legal, cultural, and strategic factors. By around 1990s, I mean, when we have started this project, most people in the public in Japan have never understood the impact of this northern sea route. I mean, people, it was still, what is the role of Japan in this particular area? But we have been really taking a very first step in Japan to conduct the possibility and the risks also involved in the usage of this passage with the partners in Russia and Norway in this case. And we have, based on our study with this experimental voyage from Norway to Yokohama, and this is one of the examples, and we have published those research outcomes in accordance to our studies, and these are some of the examples of this. Second project that we have done is called the Study on Effective International Cooperation to Arctic Governance. And this project really kind of led to the actual creation of Japan's first Arctic policy. And we have made several recommendations to our government and understanding what is the role of Japan in the Arctic. And one of the key messages that we have discovered, of course delivered, is the cooperation in science and innovation. That was one of the strengths that we consider Japan can offer. And here are some of the examples of some of the highlights of the things that we did on the policy recommendations to the, especially the Japan's third revised basic plan on ocean policy. And for the first time, we were able to ask the Japanese government to include the importance of the Arctic in our basic plan for the ocean policy. And here are some of the highlights of the issues that we have discussed, especially the protection, the enhancement and promotion of Arctic research, protection of the marine environment in the Arctic Ocean, the securing safety and the security of the Arctic Ocean, promoting international cooperation there. And all these aspects were discussed in a government, and we have concluded in the third basic plan on the ocean policy. As you can see, here has chapter, the section called Promote Arctic Policy. And in the contents, we can see how Japan has strengthened the field of observation and R&D, and in this regard, established the kind of international cooperation in this particular is going to be very important. So this is the official government policy regarding our Arctic activities and contribution of Japan in the Arctic. And so we can see today that we'll be talking a lot about international cooperation science. We saw the wonderful Xueron too, and the China-Japan cooperation in this area would enhance our effort in strengthening our cooperation and this. And in order to implement in the Japan, to think about how the importance of this, our contribution to the Arctic, we have organized the International Workshop on Arctic Governance last year, and for the first time, we were able to invite the former president of Iceland, Grimson, to Japan, and this really became a kind of starting point of the kind of relationship, the firm relationship with our government and the government of Iceland, and which kind of led to the hosting of the Arctic Science Ministry, or the third ministry that we have been mentioned. So the third example that I like to highlight is currently we are working with our space agency on really to coordinate and the way to strengthen the maritime domain awareness capacity in Japan. And here we have some of the satellites and some of the systems that we have in the space that we can now try to develop a wide-covered real-time maritime information display system, for example, high-quality, large-volume oceanographic information, and contribute to maritime security, maritime safety, natural disasters, and protection of marine environment and industry development. So these are some of the key, one of the reasons our effort and it's just sort of some technical example is this overview of, we call it the VDS system, where VHA data exchange, and where we can have a two-way exchange of information, where the Norway or launched this NOSAT-2 using this technology, and we'll be pushing our way of networking in this particular area with the cooperation with our space agency. And so here we think this cooperation with space agency will be applied in the Arctic region, where we think we can contribute to the advancement of our understanding of the Arctic and Arctic science. And this is what we are promoting. And I would like to end my speech actually by sort of one of my personal research project topic. It's on what we call the science diplomacy. And here, what I found is one of the first example of Japan's science diplomacy is hosting Third Pan-Pacific Science Congress in 1926, right after we have sort of started our modernization effort. And in fact, the first international conference that Japan, as a modern nation, hosted is on the issue of science cooperation and in the area of physical and biological oceanography in the Pacific. And we have asked all the science community to science for science. It is not more than science for, it's more the science for life. So it must be science for humanity. And this is something that we share, I think, the importance of our science diplomacy for Japan. And I've been stressing that when we co-host with the Iceland government on to 2020 of this third Arctic Science Ministerial meeting, this should be a good example of our idea of a science diplomacy at work. And I'd like to welcome you to Japan in next year, and I hope to see you again in Japan in 2020. And yokoso to Japan. And thank you very much for your attention.